Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Feed My Sheep Earthquake Reports and more. I'm Terry Rempel, and it's the 29th. We've got some big changes, so we're here with a late report that I've been working on all day. So before we begin, all of our programs are dedicated to our Heavenly Father service. We'll begin with a prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you again that you keep this program here for all who are drawn to watch, all that are led here. We ask for your continued protection. We ask that you take all the glory for yourself from this program. It is your program, not ours. And Jesus, we thank you for your leadership, for keeping us going through the hard work today. And we thank you, Holy Spirit, for the understandings that we have, that you share with us, the many things that we need to understand. All of this in Jesus' name, amen. So tonight we're having a look at the Cascades because we've got a lot of activity. We've got the first good capture of Mountain Baker activity in over a year, and we've got a full day of information from there, which is really unusual, and it's heavy activity. So here it is. Here's the first capture of activity, and all of these spikes that we're seeing, these are all steam releases. And you can see just how heavy this is. This is there's probably something close to 2,000 steam burst signals just on this few hours of the page alone. So Mount Baker is steaming hard. Now, if you have a look at the redness in this area and the blue and black in this area and how heavy it is, I'm going to show you hours down the road how they've changed the amplitude. They've gotten rid of some of this activity. So now it's actually fairly light through here and light through here by comparison. I'll take you back to the other one. So there it is there, and there. And here it is getting lighter. Now, considering how heavy it was through these areas, just how much activity did we have through the middle of this seismogram? Just an incredible level of steam being released. There must be 30, 40,000 steam burst signals, maybe 50,000, well beyond what anybody could count in this page alone, and it's just incredible. I've not seen it this high ever, and we're into a plate shift event. What I was talking about, fast creep in South North America, the southern part of North America, California being affected with fast creep. Well, northern North America or central North America is as well in Washington, and we're going to show you Washington, and then we'll move to Oregon as well. So there are causes for this, and you can see the activity being downsized on this seismogram. Here, they've cut all the steam burst signals down to about 10% value. And they do this on this line here. They do this on another line up here. All these thin lines that stand out, they've actually condensed the signals. These are super high-level activity signals right across the bottom of the page, but there's no strikes coming down. So they've cut it off. They've downsized it. And here's what it should look like. And you should see this furry bottom, basically. It looks like hair sticking off the bottom. That's all steam release signals, and that's what you should see all the way through this heavy activity. But they tried to cut it back, make it look less bad than it really is. So it's just incredible. And we've been looking at Mount Shuksan. When we look at Mount Shuksan, we say, well, when it's this busy, we can't get a picture of Mount Baker. But when it's this busy, it's super active at Mount Baker. And this is the backside of Baker, the east side, and it's the ski area for Mount Baker. So it's an adjoining ridge, essentially, but they call it Mount Shuksan like it's a separate mountain, but it's attached, just the same as Emerald Ridge is attached to Mount Rainier. So this is a very active seismogram, and when we see this in the future, that it's very active at Shuxen, we can know for certain that it is super active at Mount Baker as well. So that's just, again, this is incredible amounts of steam being released. This is absolutely belching steam out of this mountain right now. There's no way this is not getting out of the ground. And these are, again, these are steam bursts in the magma. There's water, 4% magma in, or 4% water in subduction magma that comes up in the volcano. When enough pressure comes off, then the steam is able to, or the water is able to flash into steam, and it expands 1,700 times very suddenly while inside of molten rock, and that causes a specific type of vibration, and that's why we get these single strikes, and we say they're steam burst signals. They're not bursting in air, they're bursting inside of hot magma, deep inside the volcano. And then that boils up through the magma and escapes steam coming out of the vents. So there's fumaroles, there's vents in the mountains, in the volcanoes. There's vents at Baker, there's vents at Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens certainly vents steam. That's just a normal process. Now here was Mount Rainier on the 27th. So just a couple of days back, and the same issue, but not nearly as much. But we were talking about the super high levels of steam being released on the 27th with Mount Rainier, and saying we have hardly seen it this high, and this seismogram's only at about 40% of true. Well, right now, Mount Baker at this level is only about 20% of true. This is half the value of Mount Rainier, and look at how full it is. Just incredible. Just absolutely incredible. So Mount Rainier slowed somewhat today, but it still got the steam burst signals up through in this area. You can really see them, and then you've got some uplift fracturing and magma infill vibrations through here, and more steam down in the bottom. So it's still very active at Mount Rainier. Emerald Ridge is on the northwest base, or just slightly up the flank. This is the last good image I had of Mount Baker today, so I threw it in down here. And this is magma infill at the northwest base today. So this is from the site that's at the northwest base. So we can see there's new magma coming in to the mountain. And being lower down, we can pick up magma because we're thousands of feet lower at the base than we are at the top. And so we can see the magma movement that's causing the steam to be created. And so this is tremors and small earthquakes at the southeast flank of Mount Rainier. I think this is the Camp Muir site. So we've got reportable sized earthquakes up in here, and here, and lots and lots of tremors. Another reportable, that's probably a 0.6, 0.8, something like that. Small, of course. And large activity for the Paradise Inn site as well. So there's uplift fracturing. This is at the base of the mountain. There's a bunch of uplift fracturing with the magma infill that's coming in. And there as well. So I'm sure things are getting a little toasty deep underneath the Paradise Inn. It's probably closed this time of the year, but I don't know. Very high levels shown from the spider seismometer at Mount St. Helens today. So we're having episodic magma infill, and it's coming up for a couple of 3-4 hours at a time in waves of activity. So there's a big wave, 3-4 hours of activity here. Another one here, gets a break in between. This we got some data loss. This might be carried on right through. We don't know. And then another wave down here. But it looks like we're getting episodic waves of magma infill. Here we have high levels of magma infill at the base of Mount Hood. Now, this isn't quite as high as we've got at Mount Rainier, but it's still pretty significant for Mount Hood. And we're seeing similar activity, but with more fracturing at Lamberson Butte on the southwest southeast side of Mount Hood. And we've got some small quake activity along with it here. So we've got uplift fracturing, significant magma infill to cause this amount of uplift. Now we're seeing a large jump in activity from Trade Dollar Lake to the south of Mount Hood by, I think it's about 10 miles away, maybe 5 miles away. But anyway, it's significantly active. This is all steam burst signals as well. So there's a magma, there's a pool of magma under Tom, Dick, and Harry, TDH, south of Mount Hood. Sorry, I've been pushing it hard today, so I'm a little tired, but I want to get this information out because it's a significant change tonight, a very significant change. Well, through the day today and yesterday. Now, South Sisters is fairly quiet. It's got some small uplift fracturing. I didn't put anything down for Newberry because it just wasn't busy. And there's no point reporting quiet sites to you. Mount Shasta still in the Cascades, of course, down at the southern end. And we got back to having some activity at Mount Shasta that we can see. This is just a little bit above normal. We're seeing pulsed magma infill, as we normally do, but longer periods of magma infill in the middle than we used to. But it's not terribly busy. South Mount Shasta is a little busier. We had an episode for a few hours that was more significant here. I can't enlarge these ones, unfortunately. So one thing nice about the PNSN seismograms, they show up larger on the screen. Mount Lassen finally refreshed on the 28th, and this is from the north side on the 28th. We've got just some moderate tremors through Mount Lassen showing on that side. But on the west side of Mount Lassen on the 29th today, we see some very significant activity on that side of the mountain. So that volcano is alive and well and reactivating. Sutter Buttes slowed today, so we had slower activity through Sutter Buttes. And yeah, I'm carrying on from the Cascades down into Sutter Buttes because we had just a tremendous amount of activity at Sutter Buttes that followed the subduction earthquake north of Petrolia and south of Ferndale, southwest of Ferndale. We saw activity flare up at Sutter Buttes. It responded. And I don't think it was coincidental. We also saw a big response at Mount Diablo, which is just east of San Fran, north of San Jose. And that's a huge amount of activity that we're seeing from Mount Diablo. And nobody much talks about Mount Diablo, but it's also an awakening small volcano. And now the question is why? Why are we having so much activity? I talked about Northern California now being in, having gone from slow slip to fast creep. And we're seeing the same thing all the way down the coast. I picked coastal sites because I was able to pick out the tremors better for you guys. And there's literally tens of thousands of tremors per day now down the west coast of North America, from Vancouver Island, from North Washington, down through Oregon. Tens of thousands of tremors. And I'm going to show you some of this now. I've only picked a few sites in between because there just isn't time to give you all of the information, and it gets long for you guys as well. So I counted the tremors on this page. There's about 250, and most of them large on this page, what would be classified as tremors. Now there are light tremors, but these are large tremors. All of them are large pretty much in the 250 that I counted. There's micro tremors, or what you call light tremors, in there as well. Now this is the same site on the 26th, but it's turned way down. you can see the difference in the baseline values when you look at this. You look at this here, and you can see the coloring of the background is much, each line is a little heavier, and that's as it should be. So this is at the correct amplitude. This one's turned down at least by 50%. So I enlarged it on my end because I can do that. I can't put it up on the program that way, but I enlarged it and counted this. There's over 500 tremors on this page. So even though it looks like it's less, it's more. So we've gone from 250 on the 25th to 500 on the 26th. It's not consistent, or actually 600. 500 on the 26th. And here's Bellingham on the 29th. And on the 29th, Bellingham is hitting well over 500 tremors as well. In fact, we're quite a bit well over. What did I count on there? Yeah, 500 large tremors and 2,000. You look at the heavy lines, and I enlarged this one as well so we could get a good look, because this one is turned down, like I say, by about 50% as well. And there's a whole bunch of activity through here that I can pick up when I enlarge it. There's about 2,000 light tremors as well as 500 regular large tremors. So that's very significant, and that's what's going on all down the coast. Forks, Washington, you can see a plate shift event right through here. This is continental shift with small vibrations, what they would call slow slip tremors, but you've got a tremendous number of them. You've got in excess of 1,000 small tremors, micro tremors through this area here. You've got probably 20,000 micro tremors through this area here. Just incredible numbers of tremors, but this isn't nearly the busiest one. That's on the 29th. This is Forks, Washington. Now, where is Forks, Washington? It's the west coast of North America, right at the north end of Washington, on the west coast of the Olympia Peninsula. Okay, so it's not in Puget Sound, it's out on the west coast. And lots and lots of activity out here. You can see the size of the tremors out here. It's actually a lighter day today for activity, but the seismogram is set correctly, so it shows up better. So there's over 500 tremors on that page. Here's the 27th, though. And folks, you just haven't seen anything yet. We get to the 27th, and here we are. And isn't that just an incredible amount of activity? We're looking at a plate shift event where it's sped up through this period, and we're getting more shifting of the Pacific plate over the oceanic plate. So fast creep, episodic fast creep. And Forks on the 18th. So this has been going on for a while. I can't show you every seismogram every day. We'd be here all night. But here again, we've got tens of thousands of little tremors, micro tremors through here, showing that the continent is moving. And it's moving up through this area as well. This is a somewhat turned down seismogram. And Forks on the 8th. So this has been going on for a while. We're looking back on the 8th, and we're seeing all kinds of shifting of the plates over top of each other here. We're right on the coast. There's not a fault there. There's the Cascadia fault of the continent sliding over top of the oceanic plate. That's the fault that's there. Here we are moving south now. We're at that's Baker latitude, basically. And when I'm looking at Bellingham, we're looking at Bellingham, we're talking about the plate that's moving west of Mount Baker. And what's causing Baker to fire up? The plates are moving, and it's subducting more crust down underneath Baker. And instead of not shifting at all and then having a big earthquake like California did, what this area has been doing, Washington and Oregon, it's been having ongoing fast creep. And it's getting the same amount of movement of having days and days and days of that fast creep. So it's got a different way of reacting in Washington and Oregon. It got stuck in California. And because it got stuck, it built up enough pressure that it let go, and that's why we had the earthquake down there. That's how I understand this has happened. And certainly it was a subduction event in California because we've shown the spread of activity that's gone out from it and the spread of earthquakes in a line that doesn't follow a cluster of earthquakes. It doesn't follow the normal pattern of the faults that run north-northeast to south-south, north-northwest to south-southeast, sorry. So forks on the 5th, very, very busy, even going back to the 5th. So there's been a lot of movement in Washington, northern Olympic Peninsula, but as we move down to Grayland on the 26th, we're Rainier latitude, and there's probably 3,000-4,000 tremors easy on this page, and it's probably 5,000 tremors on this page. It's incredible. So we've got a lot of activity, and it adds up. All of these little tremors are related to movement, and the movement, if you get enough small bits of movement, you don't get the large movement. So this takes the threat away of having, or reduces the threat of having a large earthquake in the north. We've still got sticking in the south, but the north is moving more freely, at least through Washington, what I've just shown now. And so this is Grayland, west coast, Rainier latitude, right? And here's a less busy day. What day was this? This is the 24th. But this is all light tremor activity all the way through here. And in the order of 3,000 to 5,000 tremors per day. 3,000 to 5,000 tremors per day. That's what we're looking at. Here we are on the 22nd, same site, and we've got some large tremors, just a few large tremors mixed in. And here we are on the 20th. So I can get at the back data with PNSN most of the time, and that's what I'm doing. I'm using their back data that I can dig up and present for you. And here we have some maybe 0.5 size earthquakes, maybe 0.1, or 1.0. Just an incredible number of tremors again through here and through here. And Nacelle, Washington on the 27th. And isn't that just a tremendous number of tremors again at Nacelle, Washington? So very, very busy. And so this is why we're saying rather than slow slip, we don't have slow slip anymore. We've got fast creep. What I said was going to happen as the friction comes off of, as you reduce the friction. First of all, the only thing that holds back the Cascadia from occurring as an earthquake is friction, and that friction is between the continental plate and the Pacific plate, whether it's the Juan de Fuca plate in the Pacific Ocean or the Pacific plate further south in California and the Pacific plate further north in North America. We've got reactivating volcanoes all up and down the coast west side of North America, Mexico to Alaska, and including Alaska, and including BC, and including southeast Alaska. Wrangell Island has been very busy up there, and Seax Cone has been busy. So it's all reactivating, and it's reactivating because it's being fed new crust. The same process that built the volcanoes is occurring again underneath the volcanoes. When we get subduction, it feeds new material under the volcanoes reactivate, and we get more activity. And when we get more movement, we get more tremors of movement. The tremors tell us that there is movement, and that's why we're focusing on all these tremors, all these sites with all these tremors down the coast. That's the surface area of the subduction zone. It's picking up the tremors of the continent moving over the oceanic plate. So that's what we're looking at, and it's a big deal because the more activity that the the greater the amount of tremors, the faster the rate of slip, and the more activity we get at the volcanoes. So we showed you all those volcanoes of the Cascades that are very busy. Mount Shasta is one of the few that's not incredibly busy right now. But all the rest of them are flared up and going pretty good. Lots of steaming off. So there's a lot of activity, and there's a cause for that. It's not happening spontaneously just because the Earth got hotter or something. It's happening because the process of subduction is underway, but on a very slow basis. And these volcanoes have been reactivating for 5 years that we've been watching on seismograms, 5, maybe 6. But we've got tree kill going back 20 years. That's related to gas rise out of the magma. So there's a lot more going on. And here's Nacelle on the 26th, and a higher level of tremors again on the 26th. Nacelle on the 25th. We don't need to take a lot of time on these. Stop and have a good explanation, and you can see what's going on. You can see the level of tremors. We're back to the 20th, Nacelle. At least you guys with the phones can see these, at least once they refresh. There we are. You're more likely to see these than the California seismograms that won't enlarge. And Nacelle on the 20th. So you can see that there's been an increase since the 20th. There you are. But here we've got that same kind of fault shift signal that we saw up in Forks, Washington, isn't it? And here where we're seeing it, it's just so much more pronounced that it's just this increased by maybe 10 times. 10 times this is this. Gerhardt, Oregon. Smaller town. There's some small towns down the coast. We're at the latitude of Mount Hood. We're on the 27th here. And again, we're having lots of tremors. This is a pretty turned down seismogram. So it's, I think it was maybe even turned off in the top part up here. But we're seeing areas where we don't even see any rise in the baseline. So it's a little bit on the low side. So these tremors are a little larger than what they appear to be. So there's a lot of tremors west of Mount Hood as well. This is Gerhardt on the 26th, and we had a shift event, accelerated movement through the center part of this seismogram. More tremors on the top, less on the bottom, significant throughout though. And on the 24th, we had another episode more later in the day. Once this comes up, round and round we go. There we are. Episode down at the bottom. This is about 6 hours of heavier activity. This is about 8 hours of moderate activity through here, or 7 hours, something like that. Very, very active. So Oregon is also shifting. Nehalem Bay on the 29th in Oregon. This is a very turned down seismogram. This is only at about 20% of true. And these are large tremors, very large tremors through here on the bottom. These are moderate-sized tremors that are hidden by the seismograms being turned down. So there's a couple hundred, 250 or more large tremors, large and medium-sized tremors, I guess we'll call them. And Nehalem on the 27th. Super busy, a lot of movement. We've got a plate shift event underway. From slow slip to fast creep. And Nehalem, nobody likes a creep, right? Nehalem on the 22nd. Large tremors. Very large tremors. This one's actually turned up at about the right value. The baseline stands out at a reasonable level, but there's a lot of light tremors through here as well. So we're looking at over 500 tremors. It's probably more like 1,000 tremors of the light ones, and then a couple hundred of the large tremors. Nehalem on the 18th, you can see it's a little slower back on the 18th. The tremors are a little smaller in size, but there's still a tremendous number of tremors through here. So this is what I've been talking about, the PNSN slow slip chart. It's just flat out nonsense. There was times when they were showing 14 tremors. I could pull up on any given day and find a seismogram with an excess of 500 tremors in Washington and Oregon, and they would post that they only had 14 or 150 or whatever tremors, and the tremors don't match the seismograms. The seismograms tell the truth, and you can tell when PNSN is lying because their lips are moving. And here we are at Tillamook on the 27th when it comes up. And I don't want to be too hard on the guys at PNSN because they just have to basically do what they're told if they want to keep their jobs. And that's the way it is in the seismic world for the professionals right now. Nobody is supposed to scare anybody. Nobody's supposed to alert anybody. It's all supposed to be kept quiet, and everybody's supposed to be calm and peaceful and not be worried by any earth change events. My goodness. Preparation is something that nobody should really do, according to the agencies, apparently. Anyway, we've got a whole bunch of tremors through here. And we are where? We're down at Tillamook in Oregon. On the 23rd, very light tremors through here, but probably a couple of thousand of them right up in here. And then a little bit larger, but more distinct lower down. On the 16th, Tillamook got very busy on the 16th. And I hope you don't find this too boring, because we have to, if we're going to say that something major like a subduction event is occurring, a different process than any professional has ever described, has ever occurred, or will ever occur, because no professional is going to back this up. We've got to back it up with the seismograms. We've got to show the science that says this is exactly what's going on, because we've got a coincidental plate slippage event with tremendous numbers of tremors all the way up and down the coast, and we've got reactivating volcanoes at the same time. Maybe many of you won't know that Mount Rainier not only had, I think it was 8 Lahar sensors added about 18 months ago, but it also has had an upgrade on all of its, almost all of its seismograms, and then it's had, I think, 16 new seismograms added in the last 2 years. They've put in, I expect, over $200,000 worth of equipment around Mount Rainier. Now, do you think they're doing that because it's dormant? They have tight little budgets, these earthquake agencies, and they've got to prove their case if they're going to get the money for that kind of equipment. And here they've gone out and they've spent something in excess of $200,000 on all of this equipment going into Mount Rainier. That's no small deal, and it tells you what they're thinking. They might not be telling you what they're thinking, but they're showing it with the equipment that they're loading onto these mountains. Now, why they haven't put anything on Mount Baker is a good question, because it's the busiest of all of the mountains in the Cascade Range at this point. Now that we have the proof, it was the busiest before, and it's proven to be the busiest again. Now we're a few miles east-southeast of Walport, and lots of tremors down there as well. On the 26th, I think the other one was 27th. 24th. Again, we're just working our way down the coast. We're at Swissholm now. We're seeing a ton more tremors there. And Swissholm is a very turned down site. These are very large, very, very large tremors in here. This is about maybe 10% value. So 90% hidden. Something close to that. Edson Butte, northeast of Port Orford by about 10 miles. This is the 29th. and a tremendous amount of tremors and plate shift event in here as well. The 26th. These are very, very active seismograms, and I've been on these sites before, most of them. Some of them are new, but most of these sites before, and they were not this busy. This is a big increase. Edson Butte again, and now we're on the 24th. And you've got to be shaking your head for the thousands of tremors that you're seeing. What we've shown for 1 day down the coast using, I think, 6 sites is about 10,000 tremors per day, just using 6 sites. 6 sites along the coast. In fact, if you took Bosley Butte and you tried to break this down to numbers of tremors, you'd be over 10,000 on this one page. So there's Bosley Butte on the 29th. Now, Bosley Buttes are volcanic, of course, so this could be a degree of reactivation as well. On the 27th, and my goodness, we are just about through tonight's program. Sorry about all the data and no maps, but you'll have to picture what the coast of Washington and Oregon looks like, and moving down the coast. All we've done is go from the north end at Forks down to Bosley Butte at the south, and this is our last seismogram of the night, and it is on the 26th from Bosley Butte, and very, very active. So that's why our volcanoes are flaring up. North America has been shifting, and it's been shifting. Well, it's been shifting for years now that we've been reporting on, but it's accelerated, and this is the process that we've explained, that it's going to move faster and faster in feeding the volcanoes. It will give us warning. And that's exactly what it's doing. It's telling us through the steam that's being released by the volcanoes, by the uplift fracturing, by the degree of activity at the volcanoes, it's fitting with this fast creep movement, the accelerated movement from slow slip to fast creep, affecting the west side of North America, at least in Washington and Oregon, and somewhat in California as well. So there you have it. There's the evidence, and I'm sorry we came on late and we're so data heavy for tonight. But like I say, this is a process that no professional is standing behind. We've got to show the evidence for this, and I hope you don't mind. So I'm not saying that the Cascadia is imminent. I'm saying that we are very fortunate that the Cascadia provides us with precursor signs. It gives us warnings. And we're seeing the warnings of going back 4 and 5 years of reactivation of the volcanoes that we've been able to show by seismograms. Previously, I was on another program showing the same thing. So, and a couple of years from this program. And so that's what we're seeing. We're proving the science is hard science. It's good science that we've been presenting. The professionals are a little behind on this one. So, and they're locked in by their managers. There are no seismologists that are free to speak their mind and have a job. So it's up to those that will study and come up with the information, those ones that are not employed and don't have their jobs held over their heads. All right? So don't blame the agencies. I'm not. It's frustrating that they hide the information, but that's just the way it is. In this case, they've revealed enough information for us to do our job, watch and warn, and we're appreciative of that. So if you like what we're doing, give us a thumbs up, recommend us to your friends, certainly subscribe, and we will see you next time on Feed My Sheep, Earthquake Reports, and more. Bye for now, and go with God's blessing. apparently